Just got done watching a video from James Lindsay. His YouTube channel is called New Discourses. And James Lindsay is an academic who specializes in sort of the neo-Marxian kind of woke space, where he's done a lot of reading and a lot of research that he has the amount of research he has done is pretty crazy. And he's a great resource for information. He just recently put out a video talking about Woke 2.0, and he articulated what has kind of been itching in the back of my mind as well, but I wasn't really able to point to it until I watched this video. And what it is that's been gnawing at me is sort of the resurgence of classical Marxian economic theory. And because the neo-Marxists, their critique of Marx was that the proletariat wasn't rising up. The workers weren't doing what Marx predicted that they would do. So the neo-Marxists used culture to kind of force that pendulum to swing. And that was what, from that we got critical theory, from that we got queer theory, from that we got woke. Woke, think of woke as like an amalgam or like a Frankenstein's monster of several different leftist philosophies that are very congruent with one another. So like there's post-structuralism in woke as well as critical theory. And those are two different philosophies. They come from the same family of thought, but they're cousins, critical theory and postmodernism. But woke fuses all those things together, including classical Marxism. But the classical Marxism for a long time has been kind of sequestered to the back burner for neo-Marxists, where they've primarily focused on culture, race, sexuality. But now, because we have seen the cultural Marxism play out in woke, pretty much starting in 2015, I would say. 2014, 2015 is when this stuff started to leave the university and began to permeate the culture at large. And so woke manifested itself in many different ways. It did the Me Too thing, it did the Believe All Women, and then in 2020 it was Black Lives Matter, and then 2023 is kind of when the trans stuff started to really take a cultural foothold in America. And that stuff it's played out in that we can spot it now. We can spot it and call it what it is and identify it. And so each time that the culture is now familiar with what the latest leftist tactic is, they morph and move on to a new one. And today is no different. So, James Lindsay, his video is entitled Woke 2.0, or has Woke 2.0 in the title. But basically what that is, Woke 2.0, is it's kind of going back to the classical Marxian philosophy, talking about affordability, sustainability, post-structural, post-colonialism. All that stuff is classical Marxian thinking. And we can see this in figures like Zoran Mamdani. I would say that Zoran is the first in this initial thrust of Woke 2.0. And it's largely going back to its roots. It's Marxist, classic Marxist roots of, no, the workers need to own the means of production. And so the left now is focusing once again on, cold economics. And James Lindsay, he explains how they're going to do this. They're going to destroy the Democrat Party. Like the Democrat Party as we know it, the Kennedy Democrats, that's dead. I've been saying for months now that the political landscape is such that it is no longer about Republican and Democrat. that distinction does not matter anymore, because both Republicans and Democrats are both liberal. They're both Lockean philosophical liberals in that we, Americans, we all adhere by the four tenets of liberalism, as per John Locke. And so, the opposite of liberalism is socialism and eventual communism, but that will never come about because socialism will never lead to communism. That's a leap of faith that Marx is asking you to make with him. So, the new political battlefield landscape that we find ourselves at now is not Republican versus Democrat. You got to get rid of that old, and what I mean by old, I mean 5 years old. Get rid of that paradigm and get familiar with what classical liberalism is. Because I think right now America, for the first time in our 250 years, is finally being thrust into the world stage of these political terminologies, these ideas that America has largely been insularized, or there's been a buffer between us and the rest of the world, where we kind of keep to ourselves in our own politics. This is how we work. You know, it's liberal versus Democrat. Well, the rest of the world's looking at us and they're going, both of you are liberals. You guys are classical liberals. And so I think it's good in terms of political maturity that America's at where it's at, because it's time to bust that bubble. If we're going to save our constitutional republic, founded on liberalism and liberal philosophy. So, Woke 2.0 is going back to its roots. It's going back to its communist Marxist roots, where you're going to see Zoran Mamdani and other mayors and eventually probably governors that are self-avowed Marxists and socialists, who they will push for the democratization of the workforce. They are going to be advocates of the tyranny of the proletariat. They're going to be in complete favor of it. And so we need to be prepared for that. Now is the time to read the Communist Manifesto. Now is the time to read Das Kapital. Now is the time to read Lockean philosophy. You're a liberal and you don't know it. Every single person on this earth, we are all products or students of thinking that came before us, sometimes thousands of years before us. So it's important that we read these original documents so that we know where our ideas and our thinking and our axioms are even coming from. So I think that's a great point that James Lindsay made about identifying a new but also old philosophy working its way to the forefront slowly over a long period of time. They wouldn't come out and just outright call themselves Marxists, but now they are. Ever since 2020, the Black Lives Matter, the three founders of Black Lives Matter, they were outspoken, self-avowed Marxists. They call themselves classically trained Marxists. So we need to be aware of these things as they are happening around us. Otherwise, they are just going to leave us in their dust, and we're not going to know how to respond or even understand what it is they're doing, much less respond to it. I think it's important that we be reading. Read as much as you can. Your mind is the greatest weapon you have.